Right, and welcome back. Still Breakfast Central on News Central. Tolisa Chukuma and Tululokwe at Delado Balogu. Don't forget you can catch us right here on social media at News Central TV is where to be. Catch us on Instagram, Facebook, not forgetting YouTube, and also on Twitter, and send in your comments with the hashtag NC Breakfast Central. Let's move on this time and talk about aviation. Now, on a global scale, passenger traffic has fallen by 60%, bringing an air transport stats back to the 2003 level. Now, concretely, only 1.8 billion people boarded the plane in 2020. I didn't board the plane either, so I think
we're in the same boat, yeah. Or rather in the same plane.
Yeah, compared to the 4.5 billion in 2019. As a result, now the airlines worldwide have lost over $370 billion. Airports and also $115 billion and air transport services and providers. Now, back in 2020, Africa's airlines recorded a loss of 78 million passengers and 58% of their overall capacity compared to the previous year. Now, 4 African air carriers have suspended operations, while 2 others have gone into receivership.
Now, according to the International Air Transport Association, aviation contributes about 2.6% of Africa's GDP and supports an estimated 6.2 million jobs. The aviation sector is one of the most heavily hit and worst impacted from the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, in South Africa, SA Express, a domestic and regional airline owned by the South African state, has been pushed over the cliff, having been declared on provisional liquidation in April 2020, a month after suspending all operations. And you can't forget South Africa Airways, that has been faced with issues for the past decade or more. Air Mauritius Board of Directors announced on April the 23rd that the airline would be put into voluntary administration to try and salvage the business.
Now, Rwanda Air, the national carrier of Rwanda, as we know, also announced that it would slash the net salaries of its staff between 8 and 65% as part of measures to cushion the airline from adverse effects of the coronavirus pandemic. Even Kenya Airways has already significantly slashed costs, with some staff taking up to 80% pay cuts. It also converted some of its passenger planes into cargo freighters in an attempt to keep some operations going during the lockdown.
And the latest, Air Namibia entered liquidation earlier this month. Now, some of these airlines had serious issues before the pandemic, but that has only worsened their situations. What does the future hold for Africa's airline? Our guest is Olumide Ohunayo. Olumide is an aviation industry expert, and he joins us on Breakfast Central today. Olumide, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
All right. Let's get straight to it. So, according to figures released by the IATA in November, full year 2020 passenger trips to, from, and within the continent reached only 30% of 2019 levels, with a full return to 2019 levels only expected in late 2023. This is 2021. The association warns that without urgent action from governments and donor organizations, the situation will move from supporting an industry in severe distress to resurrecting it from bankruptcy. Do you agree with the projection of the IATA so far? Do you think it's spot on? How bad is the situation really?
Well, I think the IATA projection is perfect, and they would have to even readjust it now with the second wave that has taken the second wave of the pandemic that's gone all over now, with further restrictions coming in due to the new variants being found by different countries. So that projection might even get worse now. I just hope if the vaccines can quickly go around and people accept it, that might probably reduce the losses. But let's not make any mistake about it. That projection you've seen is for Africa. It's the same thing all over the world. Every continent is going through the same losses, airlines collapsing, and also during this period too, some airlines are also coming up.
And now, Olumide, many of Africa's airlines were in poor financial shape even before the COVID-19 crisis started. But the ensuing loss of revenue is driving most of them into the brink, literally. African airlines lost over $6 billion of passenger revenue last year, 50% of the current jobs, and lost about 51% of traffic in 2020 compared to that of 2019, as we know. Now, as these aviation costs continue to accrue without the corresponding revenues, what radical strategic choices needs to be made to stop the financial bleeding in the aviation sector?
I think stopping the financial bleeding is not left for the airlines alone. It involves everybody. For the airlines, I think what they have done is to reduce the number of staff, park some aircrafts, reduce expansion of routes and frequencies, and then also what you see that most airlines are using is smaller aircraft for operations, just to ensure that the capacity commensurate with the is commensurate with the number of passengers available. Then for the government, what the government are doing in different countries, and which Nigeria has also done, is issuing support and palliatives for the industry. It might be financial, it can come financially, or it might be just giving some discounts on services rendered by the agencies owned by government. So different palliatives and measures are being introduced. Also, some are talking to the banks and ensuring that they reduce the moratorium on loans that are available. Different forms of support are being given to the industry to reduce the bleeding. For others, we have people discussing about how they can merge, how they can come together, and see how they can reduce the number of build capacity per se. That's critical capacity to stand the test of time.
So let's look at
the difficult time.
Okay, let's look at the strongest airline on the continent, which is Ethiopian Airways. Now, they recorded huge revenue losses in 2020, and this is even despite the fact that they were very quick to adapt to the crisis with a focus on cargo transport and the repatriation of Africans who were stranded in many countries during the outbreak of the pandemic. They increased their presence in the cargo markets with more than 70 cargo destinations now being served as compared to just 10 at the beginning of 2020. How has this worked out for the airline? And do you think that other airlines on the continent should take this route of sort of transforming some of their services? I know they actually transformed their planes, a few of their planes, into cargo planes, and said they will transform them back into passenger planes when the time is right. But is this working out for Ethiopian Airways?
Well, if you look at it, you started by saying Ethiopian Airlines is the most profitable airline in Africa, and that's true. And also at this moment, they are running at a loss. So invariably, even with the cargo operation, increased cargo operation, they have not been able to meet with their operational expenses and responsibilities. So luckily for them, they because they had the advantage of being the major airline in Africa, linking Africa to most of to the other continents. During the pandemic, most of the countries had to use them for movement of goods and medical supplies and even the rescue flights because of the track record operating into those continents, and that was an advantage for them. And that was why when you compare them to other African countries, they were the best performing during the pandemic. They were able to quickly revert to the cargo and were able to reduce their losses, but not enough to get into the black. Still in the red when you look at quarterly operational statistics. So Ethiopia did well for themselves, and like you said, for the other airlines, it's a bit difficult that because if you watch what happened to us when we were supposed to lift some of our citizens from Canada, airpeace was stopped because they did not have any record of operating into Canada, and they had to use some of the safety that other reasons to stop airpeace at the last minute from operating, and so we did not really benefit. It was only airpeace that in Nigeria that really participated in the international freight of passengers, while others just were doing something on the domestic route. But now back to the markets and the airspace has been open. Like you said, cargo is still not on the good side because economies are still locked down. People are still not working to the optimal position of pre-COVID period. So the benefits that are supposed to accrue from the cargo are not yet coming in for the Nigerian airlines, and I hope maybe in the future would start looking at it. But most importantly, I think this is a period for us to develop the domestic cargo movement. That has been very poor. But now with the insecurity, we expect that we can, the industry can tap into that and improve revenue from cargo operations.
All right, Olumide. Now, with many uncertainties on the recovery of the aviation sector, now the sector is not likely to fully recover any day soon. But some experts say that there could, however, be some opportunity, if you may, hidden in this crisis. And some analysts also view that the crisis could be a blessing in disguise. I really don't know how, but can you really say there's anything that come out of this situation? Is there any light of this tunnel that we're benefiting from this crisis, aviation-wise?
Let me tell you, for the first time ever in the world, all airlines were grounded. It's the worst situation ever that has bedeviled the aviation industry. Before then, we had SARS, we had 9/11, we had the Gulf War, but with all that, it was not the airlines that were grounded. For the first time, all airlines in the industry were grounded worldwide. And that is significant. That has affected the industry, and I hope the industry will recover. But when you want to talk about the positivity here, what I see here is that airlines would definitely come back leaner, not as big as they were before. Some would definitely evaporate, just like you've analyzed before the beginning of this program with some airlines in Africa. We've also had one or two, I don't know to mention their name, that are right down here in Nigeria. And some new airlines are coming up. You know why? Like I said, the positives. For the positives here, is the aircrafts are a bit cheaper now compared to when at the normal period, aircrafts have been packed, so you can easily get aircraft. And so we have about 2 or 3 airlines that have sprung up in Nigeria right now to take advantage of those cheap airplanes. So that's one of the positive side. Again, when airlines have now reassessed their cost of operation, that's helped them to reassess their cost of operation. If you know, for now, we don't have amenities such as a full meals on board aircraft anymore for 1 hour flight, and that's saving a lot of cost for the airline. And I don't expect. I know the airline will definitely not return those meals even after the pandemic, because they've seen that the passengers have already moved on with that, with the new
standard.
Normal. I think that new normal will become a permanent normal now.
Yeah.
So it's permanent normal.
All right, so Olumide, as we wrap up, you mentioned earlier, and I also want us to get to this, even in the midst of all this financial upheaval, industry situations, Ghana and Burundi announced intentions to create new national carriers. In October of 2020, Ghana signed a memorandum of understanding with Egypt Air for a future national carrier. South Africa has also shared plans for a possible new national carrier they expect to rise from the ashes of SAA. In 2019, we saw Uganda Air take to the skies once again. And a few years ago, Nigeria also announced plans for a new national carrier. But we know what happened with Nigeria and Uganda. So what is this craze with national carriers? And do you see any of these new carriers surviving the African terrain, surviving in the skies during this pandemic as everybody is struggling to get out of this pandemic? How do you see this whole idea about new carriers coming about?
Anyway, when there's a will, there is a way. And the single African air transport market that's been pushed around now, signed by countries. And this is coming at the backdrop of the APTAC that we have, the African Trade that just discussed on the program earlier on today. That is the trade organization. Now, all these are meant to boost transportation, air transportation, and then reduce cost of transportation and increase passengers freight within the region. Uganda was one of the 4 countries that objected to certain, saying that it was meant to help airlines and countries that. And I'm happy to see them now having to start their airlines. Nigerians are even handling some of the trainings, and they got some small aircrafts, not brand new, and they are starting the airline. They had like all the countries you mentioned, all have had national carriers in the past that went down. They're all starting all over again, and I just hope this time around they all get it right.
All right, Olumide, thank you so much.
Major airline operates on international routes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Olumide, aviation expert. Well, the perils of airlines in Africa, it's really going burst, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And Olumide will definitely be back when we have another conversation, because it's progress. SAA, man, South Africa Airways. No, we have to talk. As progress is being made, we have to talk about it. How does this look? What are the lessons being learned? And he said one thing that I find really important. A lot of these countries that we mentioned at the end have had national carriers before. They failed. Have they learned their lessons? Are they ready to put those lessons? Exactly. Are they ready to put the things they learned from the past into play, so there's not another 2nd or 3rd generation of failure with national carriers?
Now, especially when Ghana, when the likes, even Nigeria, talking about, having new national carriers. We all know how the last discourse, ended with those.
We didn't even have a plane on the ground, yet we had a campaign launch. Something took to the skies.
Okay.
I'm shady on a Wednesday. I'm so sorry.
You know, with the pandemic, you know, air travel goes like this. Just you know, it's not a crash.
We're trying to find that drift, that push that'll get everybody back up, but it has to be realistic. And the lean thing you mentioned, there are a lot of airlines carrying a lot of overhead, that technology, and yes, reducing staff, unfortunately, which is also another conversation when you have unions involved. Unions want severance packages. They want to protect jobs. You're looking at putting people back into economies that are already struggling to employ or to even hold on to what they have. So it is a massive
governments are not bailing out anymore. They talks about bailout. Looks like that's not going to happen, especially with a pandemic. You don't want to take bailouts like it's going to have to go to the back burner in terms of the airlines.
Let's see what happens.